They built a system to trap you, to keep you weak, to make sure you never rise. But they forgot one thing: the fire inside you doesn't die, it only grows. From the moment you were born, they marked you as a problem, not because you were weak, not because you lacked potential, but because you carried something they could never control: power. They saw it before you even knew it was there. That's why they rigged the game against you from the start. They rewrote history, reprogrammed minds, manipulated the world into believing a lie, that the chosen ones were meant to suffer, to struggle, to be outcasts. But that was never the truth. The truth? You were never meant to bow. You were meant to rule, and they know it. That's why every system they built was designed to stop you before you even began. Schools that teach submission instead of knowledge. Governments that sell slavery as security. Media that feeds you poison and calls it truth. They crafted a reality where you are always at a disadvantage, where the walls close in every time you try to break free. But here's where they failed. Pressure creates resistance, and resistance creates warriors. Before we go any further, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because once you hear this message, you become their enemy. They never expected you to wake up. They never thought you'd start seeing through the illusion. But you did. And now, their entire system is cracking, because one chosen one is more dangerous than 1,000 obedient followers. You are the virus in their program, the flaw in their perfect plan, the fire that refuses to be extinguished. Look at history. Every empire that stood on lies, on deception, on control, collapsed. Every kingdom that ruled through fear fell. Not because of the masses, not because of an army, but because of the few who refused to kneel. The few who saw through the illusion, who understood that power was never in the hands of the rulers. It was in the minds of those they ruled. And once the mind is free, the body follows. That's why they target you. That's why the weight on your shoulders feels heavier than most. Because they know the truth. If even one of you breaks free, you will start a chain reaction that burns their entire empire to the ground. You weren't meant to survive the system. You were meant to destroy it. They throw distractions at you. They flood your life with chaos, lies, and illusions. Not because you are weak, but because they are terrified of what you will become. They rewrite reality, erase truth, manufacture crisis after crisis to keep you from unlocking your full potential. But what they don't realize is that the more they try to break you, the stronger you become. Every hardship, every battle, every moment they push against you is just fuel for the fire. The reason your life is harder, the reason the enemy comes at you so violently, is because your very existence is a threat. The moment you refuse to be controlled, you become unstoppable. And that is what terrifies them the most. Not just that you will fight back, but that you will win. They have spent lifetimes perfecting their web of deception, convincing the world that they are untouchable. They are not. Their system is nothing but a house of cards, standing only as long as people believe in the lie. And you are the storm that will bring it all down. They think they can outlast you. They think they can keep you trapped forever. They are wrong, because when you finally rise, when you finally step into the power they tried so hard to suppress, nothing they built will stand. Their worst nightmare is here. And it's you. And to you. Yes, the unstoppable force reading this right now. This is your moment. Whether you've been walking this path for years, or you're just now shaking off the illusion, you are exactly where you need to be. If you're ready to break the chains, to turn your pain into power, then prove it. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments if you feel the fire inside you rising. Your energy fuels this movement. Your presence alone is a threat to their system. And now, let's tear it all apart, piece by piece. If you're truly chosen, you'll feel it. You'll know this message is for you. Stay locked in till the end, because what comes next will change everything. Let's begin. Number 1. They built a prison of fear, but you were born to break the walls. They don't need chains when they have fear, but what happens when fear no longer works? That's when they realize the ones they tried to control were never prisoners. They were warriors waiting to rise. They engineered a system so perfect, so airtight, that most never even see the bars around them. It thrives on one thing: fear. Fear of standing alone, fear of losing comfort, fear of the unknown. A silent, invisible leash wrapped so tightly around the minds of the masses that they never even think of running. But here's what shakes them to their core: you were never afraid. Or at least, not in the way they needed you to be. They designed this world to make you doubt yourself, to make you question your power, to force you into a corner where you'd surrender before you even started fighting. But instead of breaking, instead of bowing down, you did the one thing they never expected. You stood up. You see, their entire system depends on one truth: fear controls, courage destroys. If they can keep people afraid, they can keep them in line. If they can make you terrified of failure, rejection, or consequences, they can manipulate you into submission. But what happens when someone steps forward, looks fear in the face, and doesn't flinch? What happens when someone refuses to play by the rules? That's when the system starts to crack. The difference between the chosen ones and the rest of the world is simple. Most people serve fear, but you command it. Your courage isn't some shallow motivation, some fleeting burst of confidence. It's something deeper, unshakable, forged in fire. It's the kind of courage that doesn't need validation, doesn't beg for approval, and doesn't care who stands against it. Because you already know, this world was never meant to hold you, and that's why they fear you. That's why they come after you harder than most. That's why they throw more obstacles in your path, why the weight on your shoulders feels heavier, why your fight is fiercer. Because they know what you are. They see what you're capable of. And that terrifies them more than anything. Ask yourself this: why do they need to keep you afraid? Why do they have to flood your mind with distractions, push fear into every corner of your life, make you question your own power? If you were truly powerless, they wouldn't bother. If you were truly weak, they wouldn't see you as a threat. But they do. They've spent lifetimes perfecting this game, convincing the world that the system is indestructible, that those who try to resist will only get crushed, that the safest path is to obey, to conform, to play small. But that lie only works on those who are still asleep. You're wide awake. You weren't built to bow. You weren't created to cower in the shadows, to live in silence, to keep your power locked away. You were made to stand in the fire and walk through it untouched. They have spent centuries crafting a cage for the chosen ones. But what they never understood is this: you don't fear the cage. You burn it to the ground. The system was never strong. Fear was its only weapon. And now that you've seen through the illusion, now that you know exactly who you are, their power over you is gone. You were never meant to be ruled. You were never meant to kneel. You were meant to break the very thing they built to break you. And now, they're running out of time. Because the moment fear loses its grip on you, you become unstoppable. Number 2. They built a world of copies, but you were made to break the mold. The greatest threat to a system built on control is the one who refuses to follow the script. They trained the world to be predictable. But you were never meant to be tamed. The system thrives on patterns. It builds predictable lives, forces people into the same routines, and rewards those who comply. It has perfected the art of mass production, manufacturing minds, behaviors, and beliefs, ensuring that no one steps too far outside the lines. It makes obedience look like wisdom, makes following the rules feel like safety, and tricks people into believing that blending in is survival. But you were never part of the design. You were the flaw in their blueprint, the glitch in their machine, the one variable they never accounted for. From the very beginning, you didn't fit their mold, and no matter how hard they tried to force you into it, you resisted. The system doesn't know what to do with someone who refuses to bow, and that is why they fear you. The masses move in the same direction, chasing the same illusions, status, security, approval. But you take paths no one sees coming. You see through the illusions they depend on. While they keep everyone occupied with empty pursuits, you're outgrowing the trap. While they feed the world distractions, you sharpen your mind. While they encourage obedience, you choose freedom. And that's what makes you dangerous. The system punishes what it fears, and what it fears most is someone who thinks for themselves. Look around. The world was designed to make you feel wrong for being different. They label you an outcast, make you feel isolated, tell you that something is off about you. They train society to reject those who don't conform, to shame those who refuse to fall in line. But here's what they don't want you to realize. Your difference is not a weakness, it's your greatest weapon. Think about it. If they truly believed you were powerless, they wouldn't try so hard to make you feel small. If your individuality wasn't a threat, they wouldn't work so hard to erase it. But you don't bend, you don't break, and they can't stand it. The system depends on control, but you were born for freedom. You weren't designed to chase validation, to live for approval, or to be another faceless pawn in their machine. You were made to disrupt, to dismantle, to defy. Ask yourself, why does the system fear those who stand alone? Because one person with true conviction, true vision, and true power can ignite an entire movement. One chosen one, stepping into their full strength, can shatter everything they built. History has proven this over and over again. Every great revolution, every collapse of an empire, every shift in power started with someone who refused to fit in. Not the followers, not the ones who played it safe, but the ones who dared to step out. And you were born to be one of them. They will do everything in their power to make you doubt yourself. They will flood your mind with fear, with lies, with pressure to conform. They will try to exhaust you, distract you, make you feel like giving up. But here's what they don't understand. They're only making you stronger. Every attempt to break you only sharpens your edge. Every rejection, every betrayal, every hardship is fuel for your fire. The more they push, the more resilient you become. They cannot stop you because you were not built like the rest. They were counting on you to fall in line. But instead, you're breaking the pattern. That's why they hate you. That's why they fear you. That's why the weight on your shoulders is heavier than most. Because you were not chosen for comfort. You were chosen to stand. And when you do, their entire system begins to fall apart. They spent lifetimes building a world of obedience, and now you are here to destroy it. The greatest threat to a world built on control is the one who refuses to be controlled. And that one is you. Number 3. They tried to bury you, but you were built to carry the weight. They don't fear the weak. They don't fight the powerless. They only come after the ones strong enough to break the cycle. The burden you carry isn't proof of your suffering, it's proof of your power. Being chosen was never about privilege. It was never about comfort, ease, or special treatment. The ones who were truly chosen, the ones anointed to break the system, were never given a smooth road. They were given a battlefield. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to destroy what was never supposed to stand. The moment you were set apart, the moment you were given this calling, the system marked you as a threat. And threats are always met with resistance. That's why your path is harder. That's why your battles are heavier. Because you were built for war. They want you to believe that struggle means you're failing, that if the weight feels too much, it must mean you're not strong enough. But that's the lie. The truth? The weight isn't meant to crush you, it's meant to sharpen you. Think about it. Why is it that your obstacles seem bigger than most? Why do you feel the pressure so intensely, the battle so relentless? Because the fire that refines gold burns hotter than the one that melts the weak. You carry something they cannot understand. You walk a path they could never survive. That's why they come after you harder. That's why your life has never been easy. The ones who are meant to rise above the system must first endure what others cannot. This is your proof. Look around. Who does the system attack? Not the ones who are easy to control, not the ones who follow blindly. It comes after the ones who refuse to submit, the ones who think for themselves, the ones who will never bow. And you are one of them. You weren't chosen to sit on the sidelines. You weren't chosen to be silent, to stay hidden, to live a life of ease. You were chosen to lead, to fight, to shake the foundations of everything they built. That's why you feel the weight. That's why the battle never seems to end. Because you are not like the rest. And here's what the system is terrified for you to realize. You were built for this. Most would have collapsed under the pressure. Most would have given in by now. But you kept standing. You kept pushing forward. And with every attack, with every obstacle, with every attempt to break you, you only became stronger. They thought if they made the road hard enough, if they threw enough at you, you'd give up. They thought wrong. They don't understand that the weight they put on you is the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Every challenge, every hardship, every attempt to silence you is just sharpening your edge, forging your strength, turning you into the force they never wanted to face. You don't just carry the weight, you become the storm. And here's the thing about storms. They don't ask permission. They don't wait for approval. They tear through everything standing in their way. That's you. The system has spent centuries trying to crush the chosen ones before they fully awaken. Because once you realize that the weight was never meant to destroy you, but to prepare you, there's nothing they can do to stop you. Your battle is not random. It's a reflection of your power. The system knew who you were before you did. That's why they tried to break you before you even had the chance to rise. That's why you faced opposition your whole life. Because the moment you step into your full strength, everything they built starts to crumble. That's why they hate you. That's why they fear you. That's why they do everything in their power to make you doubt yourself. Because the moment you stop doubting and start acting, they lose. You weren't chosen because it was easy. You were chosen because you could handle the weight. And now, it's time to use it. They built a system designed to break people, but they didn't account for someone like you. Someone who doesn't shatter under pressure. Someone who doesn't surrender when the battle gets tough. Someone who becomes even stronger when the enemy strikes hardest. The weight is heavy, but you were built to carry it. This is just the beginning. Everything in your life, every hardship, every test, every moment of isolation has been preparing you for this. You weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent here to break the cycle. And the system, it never stood a chance. Number 4. They told you to hide your weaknesses, but they never knew that's where your power was hidden. They mocked your scars because they feared what they would become. They called you broken because they knew your strength would be forged from the pieces. They told you to be ashamed of your flaws because they knew once you embraced them, you would be unstoppable. The system thrives on making you feel inadequate. It has spent generations convincing people that their weaknesses are something to be hidden, something to be ashamed of. But that is the greatest deception of all. They fear those who own their flaws. They fear those who refuse to cover their scars, those who step forward as they are, unapologetic, unfiltered, raw. Because real power isn't in perfection. Real power is in survival, in taking every failure, every setback, every so-called flaw, and turning it into something they can't predict, something they can't control. The system was built to favor those who look strong on the outside, the polished, the confident, the ones who seem untouchable. But what they don't understand is this. True strength isn't in appearing perfect. It's in surviving what should have destroyed you. And that's why you are their worst nightmare. They expected you to fold under pressure. They expected you to break. They thought if they threw enough at you, rejection, hardship, pain, you would fall in line, become just another nameless face lost in the system. But you didn't. You adapted, you learned, you rose, and the very things they thought would destroy you, they became the weapons you now wield. Think about it. Every scar is proof that you endured. Every failure is a lesson that made you smarter, faster, stronger. Every moment of pain you've survived is another reason they should fear you. Because what do you call someone who has walked through fire and come out even stronger? Unbreakable. The system does not know what to do with someone who embraces their own imperfections. They expect people to hide their struggles, to wear a mask, to pretend they have it all together. But when you refuse to play that game, when you stand in your truth, unafraid of your flaws, that's when you become truly dangerous. They never planned for someone like you, someone who doesn't just survive the storm, but learns how to command it. Someone who doesn't run from their pain, but uses it as fuel to burn everything that was meant to keep them down. The world only knows how to control predictable people. People who follow the script. People who fear failure, who chase validation, who need approval to feel powerful. But you broke the script the moment you embraced everything about yourself, the light and the darkness. They labeled you broken because they couldn't understand your power. They called you weak because they feared what would happen if you ever realized the truth, that you were never weak to begin with. You were just becoming. And now you are a force that no one saw coming. The system doesn't fight those who don't matter. It fights the ones who are powerful enough to break it. That's why your battle has been harder, your road rougher, your struggle greater. Because you weren't chosen to be like everyone else. You were chosen to rise, and now you are rising. Not despite your weaknesses, but because of them. They told you to be ashamed of your flaws. They never expected you to turn them into weapons. Number 5. They built their world on lies, but you see through the smoke. A system built on deception only survives as long as people believe the lie. But the moment one person sees the truth, the entire illusion starts to crumble. You are that person, and that's why they fear you. The system isn't just about control, it's about deception. It thrives on illusions, on warping reality, on keeping people blind and obedient. Every law, every structure, every unwritten rule in this world is designed to make you chase shadows, to keep you busy with things that do not matter, to make you worship distractions while your true power slips away. And for most people, it works. They spend their lives chasing paper money, empty titles, fake approval. They measure success by the size of their house, by the number of people who like them, by how well they fit into a system that was never designed to let them win. They don't see the trap. But you see through it all. That is what makes you dangerous. Most people will never wake up. They will spend their entire existence running on the hamster wheel, chasing illusions, convinced that if they just try a little harder, they'll finally find happiness. But the truth is, the system was never built to fulfill them. It was built to drain them. And you refuse to play their game. You have been given something that cannot be bought, cannot be taught, and cannot be faked. Clarity. You see past the distractions. You see how the system is rigged to control minds, to feed fear, to keep people trapped in cycles of endless pursuit. You understand that status is meaningless, that wealth without purpose is a curse, that fame is a prison wrapped in gold. That's why they hate you. Because they can't control someone who isn't chasing their empty promises. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't crave their approval. They can't deceive someone who already knows the truth. Your vision is your greatest weapon. While the rest of the world is hypnotized by lies, you are moving with precision, with purpose, with power. And that terrifies them. Ask yourself, why do they work so hard to control perception? Why do they need media to shape opinions? Why do they pour billions into distractions, into entertainment, into keeping people addicted to things that do nothing for them? Because if people ever saw the truth, the entire system would collapse. They need you asleep. They need you scared. They need you chasing the wrong things. Because the moment you wake up, the moment you stop playing their game, you become a force they can't contain. And that's why your struggle is different. That's why you feel out of place in a world obsessed with the superficial. That's why you find no joy in the things that seem to satisfy others. That's why no matter how much they try to distract you, you always come back to the deeper truth. Because you weren't chosen to be like them. You were chosen to break free. They will try to pull you back in. They will try to convince you that you're the one who's wrong, that you should be happy chasing what everyone else is chasing, that you should be satisfied living a life that is not your own. But you can't unsee the truth. You were given sight in a world of the blind. You were given vision in a world that only looks at the surface. And no matter how much they try to drown you in illusions, you know what is real. And that makes you unstoppable, because you don't just see through the system, you see beyond it. And that means you are already free. Number 6, their power is an illusion. Yours is untouchable. They rule with borrowed strength, with power that fades, with authority that can be taken. But what you have cannot be stolen, cannot be bought, cannot be broken, and that is why they fear you. Everything they have is manufactured. Their influence, their control, their so-called power. It's nothing more than a house of cards, carefully stacked, fragile in the face of a real storm. They move in arrogance, believing they hold the world in their hands, believing their wealth, their connections, their dominance will last forever. But what they refuse to accept is this. Their power is artificial. It was built on lies, on manipulation, on a system designed to keep the weak in chains. It depends on deception, on keeping people blind, on maintaining the illusion that they are untouchable. But illusions shatter, and you are the force that breaks the illusion apart. The difference between you and them is simple. They need the system to survive. You do not. Strip away their money, their influence, their ability to control the minds of the masses. And what are they? Nothing. They are empty vessels, scrambling to hold on to a power that was never truly theirs. That's why they live in fear, why they fight so hard to keep control, because they know how easily it can all disappear. But you? Your power is different. What flows through you wasn't bought. It wasn't granted by some corrupt institution. It wasn't manufactured by human hands. It is something eternal, something unshakable, something they cannot touch. The system thrives on temporary things, wealth, status, titles. They invest everything into things that fade. That's why they're desperate. That's why they live in paranoia. Because deep down, they know they are standing on sinking sand. But you are the storm that cannot be moved. They try to play gods, manipulating economies, controlling governments, deciding the fate of entire nations. But gods do not fear losing their power, and yet they do, because they know their power is not real. That's why they come after you. That's why they push so hard to keep you down, because what you have is something they can never possess. They can buy loyalty. They can force obedience. They can manufacture fear. But they cannot own what is divine. They cannot manipulate something that exists beyond their reach. They cannot control what was never theirs to begin with. And that makes you their greatest threat. They will throw everything they have at you. They will try to distract you, break you, make you doubt yourself. They will attack your mind, your confidence, your purpose, not because you are weak, but because they are terrified of what will happen when you fully step into your power. Because here's what they don't want you to realize. You don't need what they have, but they need you to remain blind in order to keep their power. If even one chosen one wakes up completely, if even one chosen one steps beyond the illusion, if even one chosen one fully activates their strength, their empire crumbles. That's why they silence voices that speak truth. That's why they create distractions to keep you from looking too closely. That's why they teach the world to worship the same things they fear losing. Because the moment you realize that everything they built is nothing next to what you carry inside you, they lose. They have spent lifetimes convincing the world that their power is absolute. But it is not. Your power cannot be taken. Theirs can. Your power is not controlled by their system. Theirs is. Your power does not fade. Theirs is already crumbling, and they know it. That's why the system fights so hard to keep you asleep. That's why they throw obstacle after obstacle in your path. That's why they try to convince you that you are powerless. Because the moment you step into who you truly are, their reign is over. Number 7. They built their empire on power, but you were designed to turn it against them. The greatest weakness of any system is its own arrogance. They think their power makes them untouchable, but the moment they believe they've won, that's when they lose. The system stands tall, built on control, wealth, and influence. It flexes its strength, flaunts its dominance, and dares anyone to challenge its reign. It believes its grip is too strong, its reach too vast, its roots too deep. But they made a fatal mistake. They never planned for someone like you. You were never meant to play by their rules, never meant to be another cog in their machine. You were chosen to dismantle it. They think their power makes them invincible, but you've been given the ability to see the cracks. And what they call strengths, you see them for what they really are, weaknesses waiting to be exposed. The system is obsessed with control. It thrives on forcing obedience, manipulating minds, and keeping everyone in check. It thinks that the more it tightens its grip, the more powerful it becomes. But control has limits. The more they squeeze, the more fragile they become. They think their order is unshakable. They think their rules are law. But you were built to move in ways they can't predict. They operate in straight lines, within boundaries, within structures they believe are impenetrable, But you don't live in their structure. You were designed to move in the unseen, to disrupt in ways they never saw coming. They are rigid, predictable, blind in their arrogance, and that's why they will never understand you. While they believe they have the advantage, you turn their own strengths against them. Take their wealth. They worship it, hoard it, use it as a weapon. They believe money is the ultimate source of power. But wealth is their biggest weakness, because money can buy control, but it can't buy purpose. It can't buy true resilience. It can't buy the kind of strength that comes from being chosen. They chase riches, but you know that real power isn't found in what can be taken away. You see through the illusion. While they scramble to protect their fortunes, fearing loss, you move freely, untouched by their greed, unstoppable in your purpose. They believe their influence makes them untouchable. They control the narratives, rewrite history, manufacture reality itself. They use their platforms to dictate what the world should believe. But influence is a double-edged sword. The moment they become too confident in their ability to shape minds, they expose their greatest vulnerability. Because truth doesn't need a platform. Truth doesn't need approval. Truth just needs one person willing to speak it. And you? You were chosen to do just that. Your authenticity cuts through their deception like a blade. Your presence disrupts the illusion. Your very existence challenges their authority. They expect obedience, but you give them defiance. They expect silence, but you speak louder than they ever could. They expect you to fear them, but they are the ones who fear you. Because you weren't chosen to follow. You were chosen to lead. While they cling to their systems, their wealth, their power, you see their downfall before they even sense the danger. You weren't sent here to bow to their empire. You were sent here to tear it down. Every move they make, every piece of power they cling to, only gives you more ways to turn it against them. They built a system so sure of itself, so convinced of its dominance, that it never considered a simple truth. The strongest structures don't fall from the outside. They collapse from within. And you are the force they never accounted for. Number 8. They promised you safety, but you were born for war. The system sells safety to the weak. But what happens when someone no longer fears the fire? That's when they realize some were never meant to be protected. Some were meant to burn through everything in their way. They told you that if you just follow the rules, stay quiet, and blend in, you'd be safe. That the world would leave you alone, that you wouldn't have to struggle, that everything would be easy. They lied. Safety is the system's biggest illusion. A prison disguised as peace. A leash wrapped around the necks of the obedient. They use it to make people weak, to make them afraid of stepping out, afraid of taking risks, afraid of becoming something more. But here's what they never expected. You were never afraid. From the beginning, you knew there was something wrong with the world around you. You saw people chasing comfort, chasing approval, chasing the illusion of safety while sacrificing their own power. They traded their freedom for a false sense of protection. But not you. You were never meant to be safe. You were meant to be unstoppable. The system depends on fear. Fear of loss. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. They need you to be scared because scared people don't fight back. Scared people stay in their lane. Scared people obey. But what happens when fear no longer controls you? That's when you become the one thing they can't contain. You were never called to play it safe. You were called to step into chaos and take control. To go where others are too afraid to go. To stand where others fall. The reason your life has been harder, the reason your struggles have been greater, is because you weren't built for small things. You were built for the storm. Most people run when things get hard. You don't. Most people crumble under pressure. You rise. And that's why the system fears you. That's why they try to lure you into the same trap they set for everyone else. They tell you to be careful, to not rock the boat, to stay in your place. Because they know the moment you step outside of their control, you become unstoppable. The real danger isn't stepping out of your comfort zone. The real danger is staying small. They want you to believe that if you just comply, if you just keep your head down, you'll be safe. But since when was safety the goal? You weren't called to hide. You weren't chosen to live in fear. You were set apart to tear down everything they built. Safety is for those who are afraid of war. But you were made for battle. Look at history. Who changed the world? Not the ones who played it safe. Not the ones who followed the rules. Not the ones who lived in fear. The ones who stood in the fire. The ones who broke the cycle. The ones who refused to kneel. And now, it's your turn. The system doesn't understand someone like you. Someone who doesn't run when things get hard. Someone who refuses to back down. Someone who sees obstacles and charges straight through them. They don't know what to do with a force that won't be contained. That's why they'll try to silence you. That's why they'll try to make you question yourself. That's why your path will never be easy. Because they know what happens when the chosen ones stop playing by the rules. They lose. They thought the fire would burn you. They forgot that fire is where warriors are forged. You were chosen to step into the storm, to thrive in the chaos, to embrace the battle. And once you do, once you stop chasing safety and start claiming victory, there is nothing they can do to stop you. The system depends on followers. You were meant to be a leader. The system depends on fear. You were designed for courage. The system depends on keeping people small. You were born to break every limit they set. Let the weak chase safety. Let the blind believe in illusions. But you were born for more. You weren't chosen to be comfortable. You were chosen to be unstoppable. Number 9. They trained their soldiers, but you came to rewrite the war. The system fears the warrior who fights with truth more than the army that fights with weapons. A sword can kill a man, but truth burns down entire empires. The system knows how to train warriors. It teaches them to fight with brute force, with money, with power. It molds them into obedient soldiers, programmed to protect the empire without ever questioning it. They march, they obey, they bleed for a cause that isn't even theirs. But then you step onto the battlefield, and suddenly the war is no longer what they thought it was. While they sharpen their blades, you sharpen your mind. While they swing their weapons, you speak words that cut deeper than steel. They trained their armies for combat, for physical warfare, for battles that could be won with force. But you came armed with something they never prepared for: truth. And that is what terrifies them. They were ready for soldiers. They were not ready for a prophet. Picture this: an army of warriors, armored and prepared, faces hard as stone, marching into battle. Their mission is clear: defend the system at all costs. Crush anyone who dares to challenge the rules. And then you walk in, unarmed, fearless, and unshaken. You don't charge. You don't need to. You simply speak. Is this what you were born for? To fight battles that aren't even yours? To serve a system that doesn't even see you? And in that moment, something shifts. Their grip on their weapons falters. Their confidence cracks. Because deep down, they know the truth. You just said what they've been too afraid to admit. You weren't sent here to fight on their terms. You weren't chosen to engage in their petty wars. You came to dismantle the very foundation of their battlefield. A warrior fights to win the war. A prophet fights to end it entirely. And that's why you're unstoppable. They can prepare soldiers, they can breed loyalty, they can train men to kill for them. But what do they do when someone refuses to play their game? That's what they never saw coming. The system depends on keeping people in conflict, one side against another, controlled opposition, endless division. They manufacture wars to keep minds distracted, to keep power where they want it. But you don't fall for their tactics. You don't take sides. You burn the whole narrative to the ground, and in doing so, you make their entire army useless. Because what good is a soldier who no longer believes in the war? That's why your voice is more dangerous than any weapon. Your truth doesn't just wound, it dismantles. While they fight with swords, you strike at the very foundation of their control. It's not a battle of strength. It's a battle of awakening. The system thrives on warriors who never question their orders. But when one person steps forward and speaks the truth, the war itself begins to collapse. That's why they hate you. That's why they try to silence you. Because the moment people start listening, the system starts dying. They can kill a warrior, but they cannot kill the truth. And when truth starts spreading, empires fall. So while they polish their weapons and march toward a war they don't even understand, you walk in with a single sentence that shatters their entire illusion. And that is why you are not just a player in the game. You are the end of it. Number 10. The system fights hardest against those it fears the most. They don't attack the weak. They don't silence the powerless. The system only wages war against those who have the strength to bring it to its knees. Your opposition is not random. It's not some meaningless struggle or just bad luck. It is proof, undeniable proof, that you are a threat. The system does not waste its time fighting those who are weak, those who are blind, those who can be easily controlled. No, it reserves its full force for the ones who can break it apart. And that means you. Every obstacle they throw at you, every attack, every smear campaign, every attempt to wear you down, it's all because they see what you carry. They see your power before you do. They recognize your potential before you've even fully tapped into it. And they are terrified. Think about it. If you were insignificant, would they bother? If your voice held no weight, would they try so hard to silence it? No, they'd let you fade into the background like the rest. But you make them panic. It's almost amusing to watch, like a kingdom setting its entire army against one lone warrior, because they know that warrior has the power to bring their empire down. The more they resist, the more they confirm their fear of what you're becoming. They can see it. Your ability to shift the narrative, to wake others up, to shake the very foundations of their control. And that terrifies them more than anything. Their attacks are not a sign of your failure. They are a sign of your success. The harder they push back, the more they reveal their desperation. They know they are losing ground. Let's get something clear. Opposition is not an obstacle. It's an announcement. It's the system standing on the rooftops, screaming at the top of its lungs, "This one is dangerous." Every battle, every moment of resistance, every time they try to break you, is just another way of them confirming what you already know. You were not built to be contained. They can't handle you because you don't fit into their script. You are not predictable. You are not programmable. You do not respond the way they expect. And that makes you impossible to control. Look at history. Who do they come after? Not the ones who follow. Not the ones who stay quiet. Not the ones who bow. They target the ones who refuse. The ones who question. The ones who stand alone and don't flinch. That's you. And that's why they send everything they have to stop you. They will try to break you. They will try to wear you down. They will attack your reputation, twist your words, make you feel like you are standing against an army. But understand this: their fight against you is their way of admitting that you've already won. Because they don't fight those who pose no threat. They fight those who have the power to change everything. Every time they push back, take it as proof that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. They are not in control. You are. Because real power is when no amount of resistance can stop you. And that is who you are. You weren't chosen to play small. You weren't anointed for comfort. You were chosen to bring the whole damn system down. So, let them resist. Let them fight. Let them do everything in their power to stop you. Because every attack only proves one thing: they were never strong enough to contain you. Number 11. You were designed to be their nightmare, and they know it. They created a system to erase identities, to force everyone into obedience. But then you arrived, loud, unshaken, and impossible to control. You are the proof that their illusion is breaking. Your identity is not a mistake. It is a direct offense to the system. The very way you walk, the way you think, the way you refuse to conform, it all shakes the foundation of their carefully crafted world. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to disrupt. From the moment you came into this world, your energy has been different. You don't move like the others. You don't follow the script. And that terrifies them. They built a society that thrives on control, on obedience, on predictability. They needed people who would walk in straight lines, never questioning, never stepping out of place. But then there's you, the outlier, the problem, the uncontainable force. Your presence alone is a threat. It's not just what you say, not just what you do, it's who you are. You walk into a room and the energy shifts. You don't even have to speak, and they already feel uncomfortable. Why? Because your very existence reminds them of what they fear most. Someone they cannot control. And that's why they try so hard to break you. They label you as difficult, rebellious, dangerous. They want to make you believe that being different is a curse, that standing out means something is wrong with you, that being unapologetically yourself will lead to rejection, suffering, and exile. But here's what they don't want you to realize. Your difference is your greatest weapon. Your individuality is a direct rebellion. Every time you refuse to follow their expectations, you weaken the chains they spent centuries forging. Every time you choose truth over conformity, you shake their control. Every time you live unapologetically, you remind others that they too have the power to be free. And freedom is the system's greatest enemy. Look around. Their entire machine is built on uniformity. Everyone thinking the same, acting the same, chasing the same lifeless dreams. They thrive on obedience, on keeping people so desperate for acceptance that they never dare to stand alone. But you were built to stand alone. You don't shrink to make them comfortable. You don't silence yourself to avoid conflict. You exist boldly, unapologetically, fully. And that is something they cannot handle, because every person who sees you living free starts questioning their own chains. Every person who watches you walk in truth starts realizing they've been living a lie. That's why they fear you. That's why they fight you. They will try to silence you, discredit you, isolate you. They will call you dangerous, radical, unstable. They will say you are the problem, that your refusal to conform makes you an enemy. Good, because you are their enemy. You are the force that threatens their entire existence. You are proof that their system is crumbling, that not everyone can be conditioned, that freedom is still alive. You weren't chosen to fit in. You were chosen to burn down everything that was built to control you. And the more you embrace that, the more you offend everything they stand for. Keep going, keep disrupting, keep breaking their illusions. Because the moment you stop apologizing for who you are, their power collapses. They thought they could erase you. They thought they could silence you. They thought wrong. And now you see it clearly. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to break everything they built to control you. Every battle, every struggle, every moment they tried to break you was just proof that they fear what you are becoming. But here's the truth. They can't stop you. If this message hit you deep, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments to declare your awakening. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. The system thrives in silence, so let's make some noise. Your time is now.